Hi, it's Everyman Tactical today, and right now I'm going to be doing a review of my favorite rifle, the Scar 17. Now, this rifle was based on the Scar H Heavy, which is the 7.62 version of the Scar L, which is now being used by 23 countries worldwide, if not in general capacity, but also in special operations. But the French are talking about replacing their FAMAS with this rifle in 5.56, not necessarily in 7.62 NATO. The Belgians are also running this Scar H as their primary weapon system, along with the PS90 and the FN57 pistol. But that's to give Belgium is where FN is based. So um, I've seen this in action overseas, and the guys who are using it overseas absolutely love this rifle. I've talked to them about Africa. They said even in the deepest jungles, this outperformed most of the other rifles. And then in the deserts of Iraq, it also was a performer. So I think finally weapons technology has caught up to create a rifle that is just good generally in any terrain, which is the wanted need when they developed the M16 or the FAL, but they found out that the FAL was no good in light sand but was great in the jungle. Meanwhile, the M16, or its originality, the A1, was actually kind of bad overall until they made some modifications to it. But this rifle seems that it can function in a myriad of environments and under extreme stressors. So I'm going to go a little bit over the rifle. First of all, it weighs 9.8 pounds loaded with a magazine. Now, comparatively to an FNFAL, which is 11.5 pounds loaded, or a G3 rifle, which is 10.5 pounds loaded, along with the AR-10, can range anywhere from 9.5 to 10.5 pounds. So it's right up there as far as a battle rifle. It's in the lower weight category for 308 battle rifles. As far as length, it is actually the shortest with this collapsed all the way of any of the 308 battle rifles. Even with the folding stock, when I fold this stock in and around, it takes it all the way down to 28 inches. Absolutely open, it's 38, so that's not a big deal, you know, to a lot of people. But honestly, length and weight mean a lot to an actual a soldier or someone using this weapon in a combat scenario. Another thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that the accuracy out of this rifle is well above that of an FNFAL and is well above a PTR 91, a G3, and right on par with an AR-10 with a similar barrel setup. With my reloads, I'm getting under 1 inch MOA. It took me about a month to develop those loads, which really generally isn't a long time for developing loads. But the M118LR, just commercial, which is a 173 grain bullet, that one shoots about 1 MOA and sometimes a little bit over, but that might just be me. Now, the coolest thing about this rifle is that ZQI ammo, the Walmart 7.62 NATO Stanag quality. I mean, it's standardized NATO quality, but generally that type of ammo, it's $9 a box. That stuff will shoot 3 or 4 inch groups at 100 yards. Out of this, it was doing 1.5 inch groups at 100 yards with me only using a 6 power scope. And I just thought that was amazing. I think one reason for that is it's a 1 in 12 twist, cold hammer forged, medium contour barrel. I mean, I'm saying medium as in it looks very light, but when it comes to thickness, it's a little bit thicker than the FNFAL barrel. This rifle also comes with a very high quality compensator. I ended up replacing it with a AAC 51 tooth flash hider instead. Mostly looks, but I'm also planning on getting my suppressor for this. And there's, I don't want a thread on, so I managed to get the AAC one, and it was actually a pretty decent price. I brought it directly from them, and it was $54. So the barrel actually is threaded in 5/8 by 24, which is your standard 308 threading in the US, which is good because it is a European company that made this rifle. The barrel length is 16.5 inches. It is an adjustable gas system. Now, what you're going to have is some people complain that theirs doesn't function. Oh, it doesn't function. I can't get it to fire standard loads. It'll only fire really heavy calibers, really heavy grain bullets. Well, that's because they don't have it set to the 12 o'clock position. As you can see there, mine is set to the 12 o'clock. There is the 2 o'clock. The 2 o'clock is for suppressed or dirty. Then you've got your 12 o'clock, which is your general setting on for most ammo that you're going to find. Everything I fired fires perfectly out of that 12 o'clock position, which means, you know, if you read your manual and you do it properly, you're not going to have a problem. Moving back, I'm going to look at these sights. These sights are hooded flip-up sights. They are backup sights. They're very sturdy for backup sights, though. Much sturdier than most of the AR-15 backup sights that are out there, and definitely light years ahead of the ones on my Beretta ARX-100. The rear sight is a a flip-up, and it has a rotary piece that rotates this way to allow for elevation. It does have a day-night sight, one that is open and one that is small, as far as the peep sight. But generally, I don't even use these. I've only used the iron sights once or twice, and I shot all the way out to 300 to 400 yards with it. And it did fairly well. Better than the AR-15, better than the way I'd shoot my M4, because the sights are just a little bit more natural to me. The rail system on top is actually integral to the actual hard milled anodized aluminum receiver. Now this is the upper receiver on this is the firearm, not the lower receiver here, but the upper receiver is all one solid milled piece. It is just very, very, very strong for what it is, but it is also light when you think of the overall weight of the rifle. The charging handle is on the left side on mine, but you can switch it over to the right side, allowing for left-handed shooters to be able to use this rifle. Now, it does not eject on the left side. It does not have a reversible ejection, but the direction of ejection on this rifle is between the 1 and 2 o'clock, which allows for left-handed shooters to fire this because the rounds are arcing up and out to the 1 o'clock, which means it is, you're not going to get any brass down your sleeve. You're not going to be pelted in the forearm by your brass like an AR-15 or like an AK. It is a reciprocating charging handle, but because of its placement, it is well above anywhere that it's going to get snagged or caught on you while you're firing. You're not going to hit your hands with it. The only time I've ever hit my hands with it was when I was on a bench and I had my hands up on the front of the rifle trying to push it into the bags, and it did catch my finger a little. But besides that, where I hold the rifle, where anyone naturally would hold the rifle, it's not going to get in your way. Moving back from there, you have your magazine catch. This is ambidextrous. It is on both sides, as you can see. Then the bolt catch is directly above it. It's very AR-esque, but I think that's actually good because I like the gross motor skill of jamming in a magazine and using the palm of my hand to press that bolt catch. But there is nothing around it that can interfere with you doing that bolt catch with the whole palm in your hand. You're not going to end up whacking it and then getting something small jabbed into the palm of your hand. So I do like that. I really like the ergonomics of this area of the rifle. The safety, I do really like. It is also ambidextrous. It's a little short for my liking, but once you start firing it and you work it, you get used to it. And I actually started liking it in the end. Ergonomically, it has this cheek riser that is built into the stock. This is an OEM stock, and it does allow for a perfect stock weld when shooting scopes that are in these type of mounts. You can't really go much lower, unless you want to remove your rear sight. But with this, I get a great good roll on my cheek weld, and I can get a cheek weld that I can do over and over again with a great amount of consistency. Now the stock, however, I've had a lot of people tell me it is very short. I've had my friends fire this rifle and they're like, oh, does it get any longer? Well, they were shooting it from a bench, and I could see how shooting it from a bench, you'd think it has a short stock. But when you're actually shouldering the rifle, it's actually beautifully positioned that, you know, if you're very tall, you'll have the stock all the way out. And that way you can stay in your pocket and still manipulate all your controls, and it does mitigate that recoil. That's one thing I have to say about this rifle, is it has very, very little recoil compared to some of the other 308 battle rifles. Light years ahead of the G3 with that rolling lock system. It does put a lot of punch back into the user. But this one, due to the heavy bolt design, which I'll show you during the takedown, it's just so much mass and inertia that it does not, it absorbs so much of that recoil before it reaches you. And I really do like that about this rifle. So I'm going to go over the takedown now. And it is very, very, very user friendly. It's very similar, it's not similar to an AR-15, but it's like a mishmash between AR-15 and FN-FAL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the lower off, which is done by dropping it down and just edging it forward, and you'll see once you get your hands on one how to do the takedown. The next thing to do is to remove this stock by simply sliding to what would be down while you're holding the rifle as you were shooting. The next portion of this is going to be to remove the buffer spring or recoil spring, which simply just pulls out. The next stage is to pull the rifle back into the carrying hand, or the charging handle simply slides out. From there you go. And this is basically why I wanted to do a takedown on this, because I wanted to show how they make up for a lot of that recoil. And I called FN and I asked, hey, what's the deal with the lightning cuts in the bottom? And I had a theory, so I asked one of the engineers there, and I said, did you guys start out with a full steel bolt or bolt carrier and machine down lower and lower until you got to the right weight? And he said, well, something like that, and he described to me some really mechanical thing, but basically what he said is they machined off just enough metal so that it would function properly but still be heavy enough to mitigate that recoil. Now if you hold this thing feels almost 1/3 of the weight of the rifle just from this, and it's pretty hefty. It does use your standard rotating bolt system, but it's a short stroke system. This piston is up here in the forend. You can't see it from here, but it barely moves. Just a little bit back, but it comes back with such inertia that it actually causes this bolt to travel to the rear and cycle back forward. But like I said, one thing I'm going to also, just a thing about this rifle that some users may find troublesome, is it is a scope killer. And that is due to this rides up right under that rail. I mean, the rail from the center bore line is 1.6 inches. So as you can see, this is almost up inside that rail. One of the problems with that is I've had some problems with using dual ring mounted scopes, like my Leopold Vari X. Shattered, just gone. Leopold replaced it, but when I was on the phone with FNH USA, they did suggest that I would use a single point mounting system like these, like the AR style mounts, and he said those will redirect a majority of your recoil, allowing for it not to destroy scopes. He said it's very unusual for it to destroy scopes, but due to the way the recoil transitions through the weapon, it can have a tendency, if you don't have your rings set appropriately, to almost bend that scope as it's going back. I don't really know the specifics of it. I'm not a mechanical engineer. I'm just a gun nut. So I'm just telling you what he told me. Now, to reassemble, it's very easy. You slide your bolt back in. Make sure it doesn't go all the way forward, because you still got to put the charging handle on. Charging handle. Let me get this up here so you can see. See, as I said, the charging handle literally just slips in here and moves forward. So it makes it pretty easy to switch sides. Then this simply lines back up. and pushes into the end of the rifle. The stock then goes in reverse order. Then this goes in reverse order with the tang on the pistol grip side, the grip side in first, and then it rocks into place. Well, anyway, that's my video on the Scar 17 and Everyman Tactical. You guys stay safe out there and enjoy your holidays.